What kind of music do you listen to? And I'm going to tell you who you are. What does music have to do with personality? What music do intelligent people listen to? Is there music for dummies? Today I woke up spicy today. The idea of thinking about this was born a little from a claim that I always had as a bar pianist, that I had telepathy. That I would see people enter the bar, and based on their face, the way they dressed, the attitude, the way they behave, the way they walked, I would say, this person is going to like this music. So I would grab it, play it, and it seemed to me that it worked. I always felt, although it was a fantasy of mine, that when I played in a place, I was able to read people's minds and play what people wanted to hear. This is not so scientific and is for another video, but there is chicha in there too. But it did make me think about it all my life, and also read a lot. So let's say there I draw a couple of conclusions. Is there a relationship between personality and the music we listen to? Definitely yes. Can I give specific definitions about this? Not so much. According to psychology, there are 5 dimensions of personality. Neuroticism, extroversion, openness to new experiences, kindness, responsibility. How does music influence human beings? There are several studies in this regard. From my understanding, there are many studies also based on prejudice. For example, saying if you are heavy metal, you are violent, satanic, because, well, they sing to Satan, and yet some of them we know that many times they're very kind guys, they are very caring about their own. Perhaps if there are children in the group, they take great care of them, very familiar. Or another, that if you listen to religious music, you are cool, you are supportive. Omitting the idea that even when you belong to a strongly sectoral type of music comes from the hand of conservatism, where innovations are not accepted and the rules are even above the people themselves. Or if you listen to reggaeton, how good, poor thing, the reggaetons do get hit everywhere. There are studies based on statistics that would be those that have a claim to scientific truth. Because the guys ask you what music you like and ask you questions about your personality, then they put together this cross-section of data there, which I don't think has enough rigor to give it the key. But with those, we can have a lot of fun. What do you say, Gazette? Are there musicians who tell you what they are like based on your favorite music? That they can draw parallels between musical tastes and stereotypes? Of course, yes. And here we go. I'm going to show you some studies here to create a bit of hate and get you angry in the comments. But of course, my function here is not to show you a study that you can calmly Google, but rather to give you my point of view about it, right? Hold on here. I'm going to put on my blues glasses, people, with high self-esteem, creative extroverts, docile and relaxed. Of course, they'd have a little wine and a quizito and jazz. Always according to this study, lovers always keep an eye out. Always according to this study, jazz lovers would have characteristics similar to of the stars. High self-esteem, creative, extroverted, and relaxed. Now I'm going to say what jazz? Traditional jazz? From military bands? The jazz? Miles Davis's free jazz? What jazz are we referring to? Classical music. The big difference with the previous two, with whom the rest shares, is that these followers are much more introverted. The same as classical music, we refer to Strauss's waltzes, because the violins sound good, and you heard them on your birthday of 15? Or Eric Salte. What are we talking about? Being a world also so infinitely dissimilar. Here we have indie. Do you like Lightning Head? Arcade Fire. Leon Benavente or Bethesda Morla? Well, according to Adrian North, you are going to look for him at the house and his team. It is possible and probable that you have low self-esteem and are very creative. I don't know what it is like. Sometimes I also think about musicians, right? And it is true that there are also musicians who belong to genres that have been more formed with the computer and doing it from home, and putting things together alone from home is not the same as a team playing outside and conquering people and friends. A guy who has a band and has to come to an agreement with 5 wills and ability is not the same as with the musicians. Girlfriends and friends and fans who come to see a guy who does things with a computer at home. Ah, there was something more indie here, although not a hard worker and certainly not docile. How about? It seems funny. Reggie, you won't believe it, but these are relaxed people, few hard workers, although extroverted and with sky-high self-esteem. Who could have said it? And of course, the same thing, the guys make a little face and are relaxed, and besides, they believe they are gods, right? They are all bombs. Pop. The opposite happens to poppers than to indies. Sure. They are not very creative, but very hardworking. Otherwise, they are extroverted, docile, and their self-esteem has no problem. Well, here I would always like to clarify, we have to see the seriousness of how these studies take musical genres, because pop itself is not a musical genre like rock or indie, but rather it is a format that is added to it, to any music. There is pop rock, there is cumbia pop, in fact, reggaeton pop, which would be music that has artistic origins and is taken for mass consumption, often even after being rejected by fans of the original genre, which is why it is said that rockers don't like the liso. Capable, right? In other words, rock is one thing. They seem like groups, they do something else for mass consumption, and then the original fans of that genre don't recognize it or don't like it. Here we go, the rockers. For their part, they have low self-esteem. They are not very hardworking, although they are creative. In general, they are relaxed. Reggaeton people, poor things. The lovers of this genre take the worst part, since such a yellow studio has stated that those who listen to this type of music are less intelligent and have a low IQ, which is not the same. Of course, the bed sure moves a lot. This is serious. Of course, since they dance, it is assumed that if they twerk, they also twerk in bed. Dumb and Smart, Beethoven and classical music, pop, reggaeton. I always think that these studies, if they do not deal with a psychological profile, would only be superficial studies. Because let's not also forget that music is experiences and emotions. It doesn't have so much to do with whether you grew up in a village, but also, let's say, or if you have studied engineering, but also with what you have lived, let's say as a child, what you have heard in the neighborhood, in the family. In the people you love, there is also an emotional issue that is also historically linked to how things have affected you. In the case of reggaeton, I also think that socioeconomic level sometimes has more to do with what you decide, how you decide, what music you are going to prefer, rather than intellectual coexistence. And here we also have to make a reservation because we talk about reggaeton, and that reggaeton refers to the original reggaeton, the old, the primitive, or the pop reggaeton that we say was put together later for mass consumption. I mean, believing that reggaeton was born in Puerto Rico is not the same as knowing that it was born in Jamaica long before. Reggae Dembal Marathon. Is it true that music influences personality? Yes, because it influences the mood. Note that sometimes we are capable of, depending on the mood we want to have, induce it by choosing the track we listen to. And I'm sad. Well, I know what kind of music makes me happy and I play it again. It used to happen to me a lot that when I got really wrapped up in wanting to play difficult, and then I had an important presentation, and I got nervous because I wanted to play difficult, I might as well listen to simple but great pianists like Horacio Salgan to get that anxiety down. Then it was automatic. I put it on, and I was someone else. On the other hand, the stereotype can also always be self-induced. In fact, it often is, that we see in music, a type of personality that is arrogated to it, and then we turn to that music to see then. If that personality can rub off on us, that usually happens with a lot of cultured music, where, for example, I listen to cultured music to see if it can give me importance. I used to like to say that I really like Spinetta, but sometimes I don't like her fans. His music has the ability to attract people who fall in love with that music and carry it as a flag, and they can be unbearable. It is very clear that music is a powerful social tool that, even creating prejudices, has the usefulness of detecting if someone new we meet is a threat, or if they belong to a type of group that we would also like to include ourselves in. We can learn something from all this, of course. We can say that we have already learned clearly that we should not take any of this seriously, and that it should help us reflect, investigate, and discuss it. Study and above all, have a good time. Support me on Patreon, subscribe, watch this video or this playlist. Up with Archie.